The initial conversation about being a foster parent was with my daughter, Jordan,
And where were you at when you were having that conversation?
and my kitchen table.
And what caused Ms. Rosenbaum to be in your home at your kitchen table?
Well, she was a law student at Emory, and she knew that my daughter was also going to be going to law school. She was at Georgia State University. She told us that she had an undergrad from GSU, and that she did an internship. And so she was explaining, that my daughter could pursue that and how to go about doing that. So that's really how our interaction was mostly. It was just her telling my daughter how to get into an internship.
Did your daughter eventually apply for that internship?
She did, and she actually got the lead position.
And did you ever let the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum, know about your daughter getting the internship?
I did.
And when you're having this conversation in regards to her foster caring and fostering the children, what was your response when she made the statement, "Karma's a bitch"?
I just thought it was very bizarre that she would even be giving somebody's kids if they didn't have a good connection. I felt awkward. My daughter, as soon as she left, said, "I'm not doing
Objection,
this."
Your Honor, to hearsay as to what her daughter said.
Sustained.
Well,
Excuse me.
yes.
Excuse me.
Mhm.
Did you hear what I said? Okay.
Okay.
I'll just ask you another
Okay.
question. After she made that statement, did you make any response to her at all?
No, not really. I was stunned. I didn't really want to say anything else about it.
And how did it make you feel?
Uncomfortable. I told my daughter that she wasn't going to be by herself with her.
And did you have an occasion after that to see or communicate with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
The only time I saw her after that was when she came over to my house with an injured child.
Prior to that, had you seen the kids that she was fostering at all in the neighborhood?
No, I've never even saw them get in a car. My son's an athlete. He's a football player, and we have multiple football players at the house all the time. We're constantly outside, and I never even saw them.
And you said at some point in time she came over to your house with an injured child.
Correct.
Do you recall what that child's name was?
I don't remember. I think it's Danielle. I don't remember exactly what it is.
Do you recall how old she was?
She was about 2.
And when she came over to your home, what happened? And when I say she, when the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum, came over to your home, what
Well,
happened?
myself, my husband, and my son were outside with my neighbor Pamela, who's also a nurse. She was carrying the child on her hip and said, "Hey, she fell down the stairs and hurt herself, and I'm just worried. I don't know what I need to do." Well, I was looking at her, and her face was swollen. Her bridge of her nose was swollen, but her eyes were black, which in my history of nursing and parenting alone, when you have a enlarged gap right here that's reddened, usually the eyes are not black until a day or 2 later. That's like a trauma. It's called raccooning. And so I knew that the injury couldn't have happened right then. The child was very stoic. She did not cry. She had no emotion. I did not feel comfortable, and I immediately told her that she needs to go to the emergency room.
And what was her response to you when you indicated that she needed to go? Let me ask you, what did she say when she brought the child over to you?
She said that she face planted off of the flight of stairs and landed on her face.
And did she tell you why she brought the child to you to look at?
She said she knew I was an ER nurse and wanted to know what she should do, and I informed her that she needs to take that child to the emergency room.
And do you recall what day this was?
I don't really remember when it was. I know.
If I show you something that would help refresh your recollection as to the date?
Yes. Let's see. I know it was in the summertime. Let's see. August the 11th.
And that's the 2015?
Yes.
Excuse me. And you informed her, what did you tell her she needed to do?
Well, I just asked her more about the incident to kind of like let me know an idea of how that her face could be like that. Because it didn't make sense to me because the stairs were carpeted. But she said that the bottom of the stairs was hardwood. And just with toddlers, usually they have a back injury, back of a head injury, just because of their cumbersomeness and toddlers.
To any expert
So,
witness.
So she stands and objects, you stop.
oh, okay.
So this works. Okay.
I don't
You may
do
not
this.
know.
I
Okay.
don't.
All right.
Your Honor, I would object she hasn't been qualified as an expert witness as
I'm
part
not-
of medical matters.
I'm not qualifying her as an expert. I can ask her if her experience as being an ER nurse for 16 years and the history that she was given was consistent with what she observed. And I think she can talk about that in her experience as a nurse without being qualified as an expert.
Your Honor, I think that's expert testimony. It's not within the ken of the average juror. It's expert testimony. She hasn't been qualified as expert witness.
I'll allow that question.
Were the injuries that you observed to the child consistent based on your history as an ER nurse and what you saw?
No, as an ER nurse, not as an expert. If the person came into my emergency room and said that the baby face planted down the stairs, I would immediately have a question about that because the injuries are not consistent with the way she said it happened. Usually with babies, in my experience as a nurse, they're very cumbersome. They kind of ball up. And usually the number one injury is a head injury and loss of consciousness when it deals with the flight of stairs.
And the injuries that you saw, did it involve a head injury?
No, it was her face.
And was the child unconscious at all?
No.
After observing these injuries, what did you do next?
Well, I told her I was very uncomfortable. I don't like it. I think she definitely needs to take her. She said, well, I'm definitely going to do that. I'll just take her. And so I thought that she was going to. Well, I went to my neighbor's house. I was there for 2 hours.
Let me ask you, are we talking about the same day or another
The
day?
very same day.
How much time had passed? since
2
this?
hours. It was exactly 2 hours because I was freaking out because the car was still there. I'm like, she still hasn't taken that baby to the emergency room. And so because of being a nurse and knowing that I wasn't uncomfortable with that, my son and myself went to her house to find out why she did not go.
And what happened when you arrived at her house?
She said that she called the doctor's office and they told her that she could just monitor her and that she could bring the baby the next day.
Did you see the child at that time when you were at her home?
Yes, I did. She was laying, just straight laying, and she was feeding her. She didn't talk. I've never heard her talk or anything. She, again, was just very stoic. And I was uncomfortable, and I said that, you know, the nurse that she probably spoke with is probably a medical assistant because in doctor's offices, typically they don't have registered nurses. They have people that work under the doctor, not a licensed professional. I said it would really mean a lot to me if we could please call Children's Healthcare of Atlanta.
And what was her response when you asked about
She
calling
said,
Children?
okay, you can call them. I said, I'm going to put it on speakerphone because I feel like I need to speak with them.
Did you call Children?
I did.
And what, if anything, was done after you spoke with Children?
Well, I was telling the nurse from CHOA, this is a foster child, and I think she definitely needs to come in because her injuries are not consistent with the fall. She needs to be checked out. This is just, it's got to happen. She's got to have a rule out. And she asked, did she have any trauma to the back of the head? I said no. And she said, did she lose consciousness? I said no. And then Jennifer was talking to her. It was still on speakerphone, so I heard everything. Another reason I did that is because at CHOA, the phone calls are supposed to be recorded for protection of the child as well as the family and the hospital. So I was just trying to safeguard and do the right thing to make sure that this kid got checked out. She told her just to monitor her and that she could take her to a primary care. And when we got off the phone, I said, I still really just don't feel comfortable. I even offered to watch the other child so that she could go. She said that her husband wouldn't be comfortable with that. That she called her mother-in-law and that she would go as soon as she got there. She'd just go ahead and take her.
Did you remain at her house after that?
No, it was late and my son had things, football, so I had to take him home.
Did you ever follow up to determine whether or not she had in fact taken the child to the hospital?
I did. She never did take her, but she said that the doctor in the daycare had checked her out. When we went back about 5 days later, her raccooning of her eyes was gone, which, you know, to me, if it just happened, it would have taken a little longer, but I'm not an expert. But when we did come, she did have a different bruise right here on her head.
And I just want to back up so I can get straight. So that night on August the 11th, did you follow up on that day or sometime later?
No, sometime later, because the last time I spoke with her, she knew how strongly I felt, and I genuinely believed her that she was going to do the right thing and take that child to get checked out, especially because I told her, you know, social services is going to look into it. She was like, yeah, I know, they do that at the daycare, they'll come by.
So she informed you that the child was going to daycare as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said a few days later you went back.
Yes, ma'am.
When you got to the house, what was your purpose of going back a few days later?
Just to find out how she was doing, just to make sure she was okay.
And when you got to the house, what happened?
She said that,
When you said she, who you said?
Jennifer said that she didn't end up going to the hospital. She waited and went to the doctor, and that social services checked her out and everything was clear, and that she had the daycare write a note because I noticed the bruise, and she said that they had to write a letter explaining the injury because of her being in foster care.
So when you went back a few days later, you said you saw a bruise. Was that the same bruise and injury that you had seen to her face on August the 11th?
No, ma'am. It was an additional injury that she said happened at daycare. I had no reason not to believe that.
And did she indicate she had paperwork involving the fall down the stairs or the injury that happened at daycare?
No, she said that she had the daycare write a letter of explanation for social services that she was injured at the actual daycare.
Okay. Did you ever look at that letter or see that letter at all?
I never did. I didn't feel like I needed to. I felt comfortable because she was in daycare and because, you know, she did follow up with the doctor. At least that's what I thought.
And when you went back to that house a few days later, did she mention ever having to take Layla to the hospital for some type of viral infection and her having to receive IV?
No, ma'am. Not at all.
At some point, did you become aware that that child that you had seen with the raccooning was deceased?
Yes.
How did you become aware of that?
The news.
Did you ever have any additional contact with Jennifer Rosenbaum after the death of that child?
I did. She found out that my daughter got the internship and wanted to congratulate her and give her a gift, and I told her I didn't think that was appropriate.
Any other contact after that?
No, I saw her in the neighborhood walking her animal.
Nothing further at this time.
All right, cross.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hall. My name's Corinne Mull. I've got some questions for you. If you can't hear me, if you just let me know. Ms. Hall, you're a mandated reporter.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that mean?
It means if you suspect something that you report it.
Okay, now, you have testified here today that you suspected that the injuries did not occur on the date that Jennifer told you about.
Correct.
Did you call DFACS?
No, I called the hospital.
Did you call police?
No.
You didn't call DFACS or police. You and Jennifer called the hospital.
Correct, because I know that if she went to the hospital, that they would be able to check it out. That was me speculating.
And as a mandated reporter, you're not supposed to speculate, are you? You're supposed to report. Isn't that true?
Yes, I felt that I did report.
And in fact, you talked to the folks at CHOA, and they told you that if there was no, she had not fallen on the back of her head, that she could wait until the following morning and she could just be monitored, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you had the opportunity to tell CHOA everything you wanted to tell them, didn't you?
Correct.
Now, you spoke to Detective Thompson. You sought him out, correct?
I sure did.
And you gave a statement on what date?
I can't recall, but I wrote the date on my paper with my signature, so if you want to let me look at it, I can tell you.
Sure. If I may approach.
The statement reads 11/24/15.
So 11/24/15, by then you had heard the news reports, correct?
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
Okay. And you told Detective Thompson, you gave him an interview, correct? And you wrote a statement.
Correct.
And you said that Jennifer had told you she was a foster parent.
Correct.
And you also wrote that Pamela Rosar was present when Jennifer brought Layla to see you.
Correct.
And who is Pamela Rosar?
She's one of my neighbors.
And she lives in the vicinity of Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum?
Correct.
In fact, she's next door neighbor?
Correct.
Okay. Have you seen her here today?
No.
And you wrote in your statement that her nose was obviously broken, didn't you?
Yes.
And in fact, you're aware that that was not true.
No, I'm not aware that wasn't true. How would I be aware that's not true without an x-ray?
In fact, isn't it true that they did the x-ray, her nose was not broken?
I didn't know anything about them doing an x-ray. It was my understanding she didn't take her for follow-up, other than to her primary care, so how would I know that?
So you don't know, do you?
No, I don't.
You didn't call police, you didn't call 911, but you went over to your neighbor's house. What did you go to your neighbor's house for?
To Jennifer's house?
No, to your neighbor's house. You said that after Jennifer came to your house.
I went to my neighbor's house because we were handling business.
Okay, so you went to handle business, and during the time that you were handling business, you don't know what happened to that child, do you?
Well, no, but I know she didn't go to the hospital.
You don't know that either,
I
do
do
you?
too, because I went over there and she said she didn't. So how would I not know unless you're saying she's a liar? That's what you're implying. Why would she say that she didn't go yet?
Your Honor, I would ask, no question is being asked at this point.
She's asking the questions.
Yes,
You're
sir.
providing responses.
You told Jennifer she needed to speak to the CHOA advice line,
Correct.
and she did. She handed you her phone, in fact, didn't she?
Yes, we both spoke to them.
And nurse told you to watch for changes and take to the doctor the following day, correct?
Correct.
And she did not advise to go to the emergency room, did she?
No.
She did not advise to go to the doctors, did she?
No.
Now, you say 5 days later you went to see her and she had different bruising.
Correct.
Did you call 911?
No, because she explained it. She said that she had an injury from daycare and that they wrote a letter because she is a foster child. So I felt comfortable because she had the medical doctor that examined her, she had daycare who examined her, and she had a letter saying that she was okay.
You didn't call 911.
I wouldn't call 911.
The question is, did you call
No,
911?
I
Did you
not.
call DFACS?
No.
In fact, you relied on what you are now saying is an abuser's statement to you, correct?
I didn't say she was an abuser. You said she was an abuser.
You are here testifying against her, is that correct?
I'm testifying to the facts of what I witnessed on that day.
And isn't it true, Ms. Hall, what you did on that day, 5 days later, is you went home. You didn't call the police, did you?
No.
And Jennifer, you said, told you that she fell at daycare, correct?
Did she fail at daycare? With a different bruise?
Yes.
I'm not sure what she said happened at daycare.
Okay,
She
but-
said she got hurt at daycare.
But you suspected abuse.
No, I did not
You
suspect
didn't.
abuse.
So you thought that everything that was going on was A-okay, correct?
I had no reason to believe that she was lying.
Now, let me show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 117. See if you can identify that picture, that person.
Yes.
And who is it?
That's the baby that she brought over to my house, Layla, I think.
And when is that picture taken, according to the stamp on the back?
I'm not sure how to read it. I don't see the date. It's got a bunch of numbers.
You're on the stipulated date, according to the state's and the defense's stipulation, is August 10th, 2015, as to Defendant's Exhibit 117.
No, that you know.
Admitted 117.
May I cover this? Is this the picture of the child that came to you on August 11th?
Yes.
Do you see any raccooning of eyes?
It would be hard to tell with her eyes closed and her eyelashes covering.
Do you see any black and blue around her eyes?
No.
Do you see any bruises on her face?
No.
You're a member of Justice for Layla, aren't you?
I'm sorry?
You're a member of the website Justice for Layla.
No, ma'am.
You're not.
No.
Okay.
I don't even know what that is.
Now, you're not aware of the website called Justice for Layla.
No.
Okay. You've never been on it yourself.
I don't think so.
You don't think so, or do you know?
I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm not really a computer person.
You're an RN where?
I'm sorry?
Where are you an RN?
At HHC.
What is that, Henry?
No, it's an agency. I currently am doing outpatient surgery centers.
So you are not at a hospital?
No, not currently. As of 2 weeks ago, I just resigned from my position.
You said you just recently resigned. What hospital were you working at?
I was at Grady Hospital in the ICU.
And how long were you at Grady Hospital?
I wasn't there long. I was there for 4 months. I did a contract through another agency.
And when Ms. Rosenbaum told you about the daycare and the letter, you believed her?
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't have any reason not to believe her.
So did you feel you had a need to call the police or DFAX or anyone else?
No, ma'am.
And you said when she came to your home with this child with raccoon eyes, that was on what day?
I believe it was the 11th. I think it was the weekend,
What month?
August.
And the picture that the defense just showed you, what's the date on the back of there?
It says August 10th, 2015.
So would that have been prior to you seeing that child?
Yes.
And nothing further.
Okay.
Let me just ask that she be subject to recall.
All right, ma'am. Any other thoughts on whether or not she can be excused?
She can be excused by the state.
Okay. Then what this means is that you're still under subpoena, you're subject to a recall, which means that you have to stay nearby so that you can get in touch with you.
Okay.
But you're free to go.
Like I go to my house?
Okay. You
Okay.
Just carry on.
Thank you.
We'll get back in touch with you if you need to.
Thanks, sir.
Or she will not generally be approached. If you can turn around and face me. Try to get you as close to God as you possibly can. I think we did it. Can you raise your right hand for me? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth and the whole truth so help you God? Can you please state and spell your first and last name?
My name is Jordan Hall, Jordanhall.
And Jordan, do you know the defendants in this case, Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum?
I more know Jennifer, but I have heard of Joseph. Yes.
And how do you know Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Jennifer was our neighbor at the time I was attending college, and she knew of the Georgia Legislative Internship Program, and so that is why we were introduced.
And where were you when you were introduced to Jennifer Rosenbaum?
I was at my mother's home.
And tell me about that conversation when you met Jennifer Rosenbaum.
Well, at first it was very normal. You know, she was just introducing herself, letting me know about the internship. But then we started to talk about our lives in general, and she told me that she was fostering children at the time. And one thing that struck me as a little alarming was that she said that the children that she was fostering, she had interacted with them before because they were the biological children of a previous foster family she had been with.
And what did she tell you about those biological parents of the children?
She said that the mother was a meth addict and that Karma was a bitch because now she would be taking care of those meth addicts' children.
How did it make you feel when she made those statements?
I felt very uncomfortable, first of all, because it was my first time meeting Miss Rosenbaum, and that just did not seem like a normal statement to me. So I told my mom from that point on I didn't want to interact with her by myself at all, if possible.
Did you have any more interaction with Miss Rosenbaum after that initial conversation?
Yes, I did. My mom had told me that the child was injured, and I was lucky enough to be the recipient of the Georgia Legislative Internship. So I informed her, thanking her that I got accepted into the program, and she said she wanted to come by and bring a blazer. Well, I never saw her again, but she said that she wasn't able to come because her little one took a fall down the stairs.
And was this a conversation that you had or via some other method?
This was done via text message.
Okay, and I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 150. Do you recognize State's 150?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is that?
These are text messages between myself and Miss Rosenbaum.
Okay, I'd ask that State's Exhibit number 150 be introduced into evidence.
Exhibit 150.
And in that text message, what did she tell you about the fall down the stairs?
She said that her little one took a fall on the stairs and fell on her face. And so my response was, Mom told me, I hope that she is okay. And she said that Joseph's mother would be watching the children. And then she asked me about my class schedule because she wanted to know when I would be starting the internship.
And I'm going to back you up just a second, George. You said that she told you that Joseph's mother would be watching the children?
Yes.
During what period of time was his mother supposed to watch the children?
I would have to look at the, I'm sorry. This was a text. She said that Millie's bedtime is at 8:30 and that Joe's mom was just going to watch Millie until they got back.
Did she say what she meant by saying until we got back?
No, she did not.
And then you said, did you further have any communication with her?
Yes, I asked her how the baby was doing, and she then sent me a picture of the baby.
And is this a picture that's part of that text message?
Yes, and she said they were about to head home from dinner. Oh, I think that must have been what it was in reference to. I'm sorry. The mother must have been watching them while they were at dinner.
When she sent this to you, what is the text underneath that photograph?
That's the text where she said, here she is, referring to Millie, doing better. We're about to head home from dinner. That's from dinner.
After that, did you ever go over to her house at all and see Layla or Millie?
No, not at all. And that was another thing that was strange as well for me is that when we were originally told she was fostering your children, we thought surely we would have seen them because we live in a very small neighborhood subdivision. All the children pretty much know and interact with one another.
Had you ever seen the kids outside at all?
No, not at all.
Did you ever interact with Millie or Layla at all?
Not at all. We never saw them at all.
Nothing further this time.
Okay, cross.
Ms. Hall, my name's Kareem. I'll just have a few questions for you.
Yes, ma'am.
It's fair to say that Jennifer said to you, sorry I didn't get to see you when I came over. My little one took a trip down the stairs and fell on her little face.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And you said, Mom told me I hope she's okay.
Yes.
And she said to you, tell your mom, right, Joe's mom is staying with Millie.
Yes.
She wants to be here when we get back, since we don't know how late it will be.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So Millie can just go to bed. Her bedtime is 8:30.
Yes, ma'am.
So we just put her to bed, and Joe's mom is going to watch her until we get back.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you don't know whether she went to the hospital or to the doctors and then to dinner, do you?
No, I don't.
So you have no knowledge about where she went.
No, I don't.
And on August 15th, oops. Is this the picture that she sent you on August 15th?
Yes, ma'am.
If I may, Your Honor, it's been tendered into evidence, if I could display it to the jury.
Any objection?
No question.
All right.
Is this the picture she sent you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you got it in black and white or in color?
In color.
Did you see anything on this picture, any raccooning of eyes?
No, ma'am, but I'm also not a medical professional, so I don't know what her eyes should or should not have.
Did you see any black and blue around her eyes?
Not that I could see, no.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right.
Just a follow-up, Judge. What day did you get that original text on from Ms. Rosenbaum?
The picture, the text with the image,
No, prior to that.
on the 11th,
Of what month?
August. So the picture was 4 days after the original text.
Okay. And when she texted you on August the 15th, did she mention having to take Layla to the hospital on August the 12th?
No,
Did she mention anything about having to get any IV treatment on August the 12th?
no, not at all.
How did she tell you Layla was doing?
She said she was doing better.
Nothing further.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And is there any objections to this being excused?
None from the state, Your Honor.
None from the defense, none from the state. You're excused. Okay, please call your next witness.
Dr. Ratmeyer?
Dr. Ratmeyer.
Yes, sir.
She would permit us to have a moment.
Right up here, please, doctor. And you're ready.
Thank you, Judge. Could you state your name and spell it for the record, please?
My name is Laila Marie L-Y-R-A-R-A-T-M-E-Y-E-R.
And doctor, how are you employed?
I am employed at Primary Pediatrics, after hours in McDonald's.
Should be sworn.
She's not sorry. I'm sorry, Your Honor. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
And let's start over. If you could state and spell your name for the record.
Laila Marie L-Y-R-A-R-A-T-M-E-Y-E-R.
And you said you work for Primary Pediatrics?
Yes.
In after hours? What kind of work do you do there?
I see patients on a walk-in basis for illnesses and injuries.
And do you only see children?
Yes.
And how long have you been employed at Primary Pediatrics?
I have been there 12 and a half years.
Have you always worked after hours at Primary Pediatrics?
Yes.
And what is your, what was your residency in?
Pediatrics.
And what type of, generally at the after-hours clinic, what kind of cases do you see?
It's usually minor illnesses.
And as a pediatrician, are you trained to note any suspicions of child abuse?
Yes.
And are you a mandatory reporter?
Yes.
And are you trained to document in writing what occurs at an appointment?
Yes.
And that would include any suspicions of child abuse?
Yes.
Now, on September 26th of 2015, did you treat a patient by the name of Millie Place?
Yes.
And what was the reason for Millie's September 26, 2015 appointment?
She came to our office because of symptoms of fever and sore throat and cold symptoms.
Prior to September 26 of 2015, had you ever treated Millie?
No.
Prior to September 26 of 2015, had Millie ever been seen at Primary Pediatrics?
I thought not, but looking back at our record, I do believe she was there under a different name, possibly Glendinning.
Do you know what the date of that appointment would have been?
I believe it was in 2013.
Now, going back to the September 26, 2015 date, was Millie examined on that date?
Yes.
And how was she examined?
For those symptoms, it would be a clothed exam, auscultation with a stethoscope and looking in her ears and mouth and nose, and a general just visual exam.
So you never had Millie take off her clothes during that exam?
I don't believe I did.
And how was Millie treated for her symptoms?
Just over-the-counter symptomatic treatment.
Who brought Millie to her September 26, 2015 appointment?
I believe it was Jennifer Rosenbaum.
And how do you know it was Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Looking back at the record,
And how did Jennifer Rosenbaum pay for the doctor's visit?
I believe it was Medicaid.
And at the September 26, 2015 visit, did you document any suspicions or concerns of child abuse?
No.
Now, was Millie next seen at your practice on August 27 of 2016?
According to our records, yes.
And who saw her on that date?
That was Dr. Trish Moss.
And what was the reason for the August 27, 2016 appointment?
I don't recall.
But looking at the records, help refresh your recollection? And at this time, I will tender State's Exhibit 151 into evidence. It's self-authenticated.
Admit.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach the witness?
So according to Dr. Moss's notes from the record, she presented with swollen red tonsils and pus pockets on her tonsils.
And at that time, were there any notations regarding any suspicions of child abuse by Dr. Moss?
According to her notes, I don't see any indication of child abuse in the record.
And when was the next time that Millie was seen at Primary Pediatrics?
November 7th of 2016, Dr. Moss saw her again.
And what was the reason for that appointment?
Painful and frequent urination.
Was any concerns of child abuse noted on the November 7, 2016 appointment?
There's no indication of concerns in the record.
And let me just step back. On August 27, 2016, based on the reason for Millie's appointment being swollen tonsils, would she have had a full body exam?
I don't believe so, but I don't know what was done at that visit.
Had you seen her on August 27, 2016, and she came in with red tonsils, would you personally have done a head-to-body exam?
I'll allow it.
Based on this, I don't believe I would.
Now, on November 7 of 2017, was a full body exam done of Millie?
So, again, according to her notes, she does remark on normal genital urinary exam.
And what is that, genitouria?
So that would be examining the external genitalia.
And when you examine a child's external genitalia, are they completely unclothed?
Not necessarily.
Is any clothing taken off?
Right. Probably partially unclothed.
And that would be the clothing that covers the genitalia. On January 22 of 2017, was Millie placed treated at Primary Pediatrics?
Yes,
And did you see Millie on that date?
I did.
And what was the reason for Millie's appointment?
The complaint was abdominal pain.
And was Millie examined on that date?
Yes.
And how was she examined?
So the routine exam and then a more extensive abdominal exam.
And what do you do in a more extensive abdominal exam?
So based on my notes, I did palpate the abdomen for any masses, tenderness. I flexed her legs up to the abdomen, looking for abdominal pain to be elicited. She was able to hop up and down on each foot without any abdominal pain.
When you are checking the abdomen, are you lifting up her clothing to see the skin of her abdomen?
Yes, I usually do.
And on January 22, 2017, did you have any concerns or suspicions of child abuse?
I did not.
And have you ever treated a patient by the name of Laila Daniel?
I have not.
Has anyone at Primary Pediatrics ever treated a patient named Laila Daniel?
To my knowledge, no.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, Cross.
So the only time in 2015 that you saw the child was in September of 2015?
Yes.
And at that time, Jennifer Rosenbaum brought her in, correct?
Yes.
Now, these other instances that you talked to us about in 2016 and 2017, Jennifer didn't bring her in, did she?
According to Dr. Moss's notes, she was brought in by the grandmother.
Okay, that was on 8/27/16,
Yes.
the great-grandmother?
It says by grandmother.
And 11/7/17?
11/7/16, she was brought in by grandmother, according to Dr. Moss's notes.
In January of 17?
She was brought in by grandmother.
Are you aware that as of 11/17/2015, she was no longer with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
I'm not aware.
Going back to September 26, 2015, did the child complain of any bruising or abuse of any sort?
No.
Did she say anybody was hurting her?
No.
Thank you, that's all I have.
No further questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Giuseppe. Any questions, Dr. Giuseppe?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, please call your next witness.
State calls Kimberly Purcell.
All the way up here, please, ma'am. All the way up here, right? The witness stage, the chair or the microphone. Once you get here, just get yourself up and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you shall give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay. You could sit down. You could state your name and then spell it for the record, please.
Kimberly Purcell, Kimberly Purcell.
Ms. Purcell, how are you employed?
I work full-time as a pediatric nurse practitioner.
And where do you work?
Currently work at Primary Pediatrics in Macon.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Primary Pediatrics in Macon,
And how long have you worked in primary pediatrics in Macon?
3.5 years.
Prior to working at Primary Pediatrics in Macon, where were you employed?
McDonough Pediatrics
How long did you work at McDonough Pediatrics?
for about 4 years,
How long have you been a nurse practitioner?
since 2010.
And what were your duties at McDonough Pediatrics?
To assess and treat well and sick children.
And whenever a child comes into your practice, do you make a note or document the visit?
Yes.
And are you trained to document any suspicions of child abuse?
Yes.
If you notice suspicion of child abuse, are you required to report it?
Yes.
Now, as a nurse practitioner, have you ever documented any suspicions of child abuse?
Yes.
And what did you do in cases where you noted suspicions of child abuse?
And we notified the police first, and then we report it to DFACS.
Now, I want to ask you some questions about a 4-year-old well check. What is the purpose of a 4-year-old well check?
To make sure that they're developmentally where they should be, that there are no underlying health conditions.
And generally, what happens at a 4-year-old well check?
The child is undressed, examined. We go over nutrition, growth and development with the parent, and then if they need immunizations, they receive those.
Now, on October 12 of 2015, did you see a patient by the name of Millie Place?
Yes.
Prior to October 12 of 2015, had you ever seen Millie Place?
No.
And what was the purpose of Millie's October 12, 2015 visit?
I love that 4-year-old well visit.
And who brought Millie to her appointment?
A foster parent.
And what did Millie's foster parent tell you about Millie's birth history?
It was unknown.
And you said foster parent. Do you remember if it was a male or female?
Female.
And according to the foster mother, when did she first receive Millie?
I believe May of 2015.
And according to Millie's foster mother, who lived in the home with Millie at the time?
The foster mother and I think another male and her biological sibling.
What, if anything, did Millie's foster mother say about Millie and attending daycare?
Twice per week.
She said she attended daycare twice per week?
Yes.
Did Millie's foster mother tell you that she had any problems with Millie?
No.
Did Millie's foster mother tell you she had any concerns with regard to Millie?
No.
Now, in a developmental section of a visit, if you note a 4-year-old child tells stories, what does that mean?
It means if you interact with a child and ask questions, they respond appropriately. They can tell stories, like if you ask what their favorite thing to do is, they can tell you what they're talking about.
And so is this something that you personally observe?
Yes, interaction with a child.
And so if you note in the development section that a 4-year-old tells stories, is that what you would hope to see in a typical 4-year-old?
Yes.
And in Millie's case, did you note that she tells stories?
Yes.
What does it mean if in the development section of the visit you note a 4-year-old distinguishes fantasy and reality?
Like if you ask questions, they respond appropriately, such as, what's your favorite food? They tell you their favorite food and not an inanimate object, like a unicorn or something like that.
Okay, so they actually tell you it's a food, not
Right.
something that wouldn't be a
They
food.
respond appropriately.
Okay. And so is that what you would hope to see in a typical 4-year-old?
Yes.
And is that what you saw in Millie's case?
Yes.
Okay. Is it part of your practice to do a hemoglobin test during a 4-year-old well check?
Yes.
And what is the hemoglobin test?
It's the amount of red blood cells that carry the oxygen throughout the body.
And how is the test done?
A finger prick.
And what were the results of Millie's hemoglobin test?
I believe she was 11.6.
Well, what does that mean?
So there's a range of normal values that we accept for children, and if they're too low, then we would do additional treatment or testing. Hers was in the normal range, on the lower side of normal, but in the normal range for her age.
Now, in regards to the 4-year-old physical, you indicated you take off the clothing,
We do.
and in Millie's case, did you follow this protocol?
Yes.
And at that time, did you note any concerns for child abuse during Millie's October 12 visit?
No.
At any time during the visit, did Millie's foster mother ever tell you that she had concerns that Millie had been previously physically abused by other parents?
No.
And at any time, did you treat a patient by the name of Laila Daniel?
No.
To your knowledge, at any time, did McDonough Pediatrics treat a patient by the name of Laila Daniel?
I do not know.
You're not sure at this time?
I'm not sure.
Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Cross.
Yes, Your Honor. On 10/12/15, Did you notice anything wrong with either of Millie's arms?
No.
Did she complain about pain in her arms?
No.
Did you palpate her?
Yes.
And what does that involve? Can you tell us?
Touching the skin, feeling for pulses, feeling for enlarged lymph nodes, feeling for any abnormalities.
In palpation, can you sometimes feel whether there's a broken bone?
Yes, you could.
And you didn't feel any, did you? Thank you. That's all I have.
No further questions from the state.
All right, thank you. You can step down. And,
May she be excused?
Yes.
okay. Would please turn toward Mr. Chase. And he will swear you in.
All right, Ms. Banks, if you could please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You can put your hand down. Please state your true and correct name for the record.
Peggy Ann Banks.
And Ms. Banks, are you currently working?
No, I'm retired.
Where did you retire from?
I retired from the state of Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
And what did you do there?
I wore many hats during the 20 years that I was there. I started as a secretary, became a legal secretary, then a legal assistant, then an investigative assistant.
So after 20 years, you retired, correct?
Yeah.
All right. I want to talk a little bit about some of your family. Do you know a person by the name of Regina Banks?
My daughter,
And Tessa Daniel?
my granddaughter,
How about Millie? Do you know a person by the name of Millie?
my great-granddaughter,
All right. And how about Layla Daniel?
my great-granddaughter.
Tell me a little bit about when Millie was first born. How much interaction did you have with Millie when she was first born?
Well, first of all, I was there when she emerged into this world, just inches away. And then when when she was home with her mother would get overwhelmed by the details in taking care of an infant and adding that to everything else she had to do. So she would call me up and ask me to come over and help.
How close did you live?
About a mile.
How often did you see Millie when she was very young?
Frequently. I started taking her with me to church every weekend. Well, she would come and stay with me every weekend. I had a baby bed at the house and everything. And she started going to church and never missed a Sunday when she was just a few months old.
Who was Millie living with when she was first born?
She went home to live with her mother, her grandmother, and her aunt and uncle.
How about when Layla was born? Did the living situation change at all?
Yes, they were no longer in a small rental home. They were now in a large house that my daughter bought. It had 3 bedrooms and 2 baths upstairs. And then the downstairs basement was as big as the upstairs was, and it was divided into 3 smaller rooms and 1 large room and another bathroom. And basically, Tessa and Millie and Layla lived downstairs. And upstairs was Tessa's sister Jillian and her brother Dalton and her mother Gina.
How far was this home from your home?
Between a mile and 2 miles.
Did you see Layla as often as you saw Millie when she was first born?
No, and there were a lot of reasons for that. I saw her, of course, every time I went over there, but she was being well cared for. She had her mother and her grandmother there watching her, and her aunt and her uncle. Even though they had lived with her at the previous house, this was just a whole much bigger and nicer setup. And as far as I could tell, they were taking good care of her. And then Layla's aunt, on her daddy's side, would spend a lot of time with her as well. There were family members.
Family members in and out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell me, to your knowledge, did Layla have any medical conditions when she was born?
No.
Did she have any medical conditions the entire time that she was alive that you're aware of?
No.
What about Millie?
No. She had some slight sniffles during seasonal allergies season, but other than that.
Tell me a little bit more about Layla when she was a baby. How was she as far as being an eater?
Oh, that girl would eat everything in sight.
Okay.
She had no problems with food.
No problems with food. How was she, and this goes for her entire life, how was she, as far as you're aware, as far as the potty training? How was she doing on that?
She was doing very well. She would let us know when she had to go.
Was she an active child?
Very
How would you describe her temperament?
normal for a toddler her age. If you tried to take a toy away from her, she wasn't very happy, but otherwise she loved playing with her sister and going places with us. We'd take her to the splash pad or the swimming pool or someplace at the park. She enjoyed that.
Now, at some point, did the children stop living with Tessa?
Yes.
And why did they stop living with Tessa?
Tessa became aware that she was about to be sent to jail and wanted to make sure that her kids were taken care of in her absence. And her mother worked, so her mother said she had a friend that would take them in because the friend's daughter lived with her and the daughter had a child, Layla's age.
And what about Millie? Who did Millie go live with?
She went with them as well. And I didn't know anything about this beforehand.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about your health at the time when this was going on. How was your health at that point?
Tenable.
All right. What do you mean by that?
Well, the previous year I had a hip replacement and a thyroidectomy. And then the year after that, well, Layla died on November 17th. And on November 18th of the following year, I lost my mother. Then in 2018, I underwent 5 surgeries, including one for breast cancer. And I was really traumatized by the death and everything that happened before and after.
Okay. I want to go back though to like the 2014 era when the children were first going to live with Miss Tate and ultimately Millie went to go live somewhere else. Tell me why the girls didn't. Could they come live with you?
As far as I was concerned, I would love to have had them, but I live in a 55 and older community where children are not allowed. And I guess that's why they were sent somewhere else.
Okay. At some point, prior to the girls going into foster care, did either child ever live with you?
Yes, Millie's, the family she was put with sent her to live with, well, she was living with a Miss Tate and Miss Tate's daughter. Miss Tate's ex-husband and his new wife lived up on the other side of Gainesville, Georgia, and she was sent to live with them.
And at some point you actually went up there and got them, correct? Or got Millie?
Yes, I went up there about every other weekend, and every other weekend they would come down here. So I always got visits with Millie, sometimes with Layla if I would go to Miss Tate's house.
You didn't go to Miss Tate's house very often, though, did you?
Not very often. Usually she was off with her aunt. No, Layla was.
Okay. So you did not see Layla nearly as much as you saw Millie during this time period. And when I say you went up and got Millie, you actually took her without, I guess, the Chapmans knowing. Is that correct?
Well, without them knowing my intent.
Yes.
Obviously they saw when I picked her up and put her in my car and drove off.
And then were the police called?
They did contact the police because, unbeknownst to me at that time, they had gone to DFACS and got a case started on her. I was totally unaware of that.
So prior to that, you had no idea that DFACS was even involved?
No.
Did DFACS, however, I guess, remain involved in the children's life thereafter? Is that a guess?
Yes.
Okay. So you, did Millie ever come and live with you at your 55 and older community?
Yes. When I got her from them, she stayed with me in my home for about 5 months until at one HOA monthly meeting, I was told that they were aware that she was there and that was against the rules and she couldn't stay.
At that point, is that when the girls went into foster care?
Yes, Miss Tate's daughter had been taking care of Layla, and she was going back to school, so she could no longer care for Layla at the same time that I could no longer care for Millie. So we had to go to juvenile court and let the judge make a decision.
Now, did you offer to keep either girl?
I offered to keep Millie.
Okay. And what about Layla?
Her grandfather wanted her. He was there in the court and he asked for her.
Okay. So family members tried to
Yes.
try to initially. Is that correct? What happened though at that court hearing?
Well, the judge insisted they not be split up.
Objection to what the judge insisted that's hearsay.
I can ask you. I can
I'm
ask
sorry,
you a question
did I
a
use the
different way.
wrong
No,
word?
you didn't. You didn't do anything wrong. Let me ask you the question this way. At the end of the court hearing, did Millie go home with you?
No,
And how about at the end of the court hearing, did Layla go home with her grandfather?
no.
Okay. What happened to them?
Well, the judge asked for,
Objection again to the judge asking is hearsay.
It's fine. Do you know where the girls went?
yes,
Where did they go?
they went home with Millie's paternal grandmother.
And who was that?
Her name is Elaine Place.
How long did Miss Place keep the girls?
Well, she got them on Wednesday, and 2 days later on Friday, she took them to DFACS, dropped them off, and said, I want to be a mom.
At that point, do you know where the girls were placed? Which foster parent?
That's when they went to live with Miss Brown.
Okay. And when they were with Miss Brown, did you ever see either of the girls?
Yes, I had weekly visits with them. I would meet Miss Brown at a designated place in Stockbridge and take the girls from her car into mine. There were times when I only got Millie. Sometimes I got both of them.
When you would get both of them, were you able to care for both of them by yourself?
No, because I have back problems and I couldn't lift her. I wouldn't have been able to pick her up and put her on the bed to change her diaper.
And when you're saying her, who are you referring to?
Layla.
No, you're fine.
And so sometimes I would have help though. My sister or a friend would come over to help me, and those days I would get both of them.
Now, how long did the girls stay with you when you had these visits?
Usually from about 9 or 10 in the morning until about 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
So these were just day visits?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Full days.
Full days. At any point when the children were placed with Miss Brown, did you ever notice any bruising or any injuries on them?
No, I can't recall them.
When they were with Miss Brown, did you ever have any concerns for their safety?
No.
Eventually they were placed with Miss Lambert, correct?
Yes.
All right. How often would you see either of the girls when they were placed with Miss Lambert?
Yes.
And how often would you see them?
That would be a weekly visitation as well.
Now, did you get to see both of them or just one of them?
I would take both when I had someone to help me with Layla.
Was that all the time?
I can't recall whether I had her a couple of times from Miss Lambert or a couple of times from Miss Brown. Maybe both, I don't know.
When they were with Miss Lambert, did you ever see or observe any injuries or bruising?
No.
Did you ever have any concerns for their safety?
No.
Now, when you had the children, did you ever talk to them about whether or not they needed to behave with their foster parents?
Always. My favorite expression to Millie was, remember, yes ma'am and mind. Yes ma'am and mind. It's ingrained in her brain. Yes ma'am and mind. I always taught them to be respectful and to do whatever the parent asked them to do.
So did you ever tell them they did not have to live with or listen to their foster parents?
No, I would never tell them that.
How did Millie feel, to your knowledge and from what you could observe, about not being able to live with you anymore?
Well, Millie was a Nana's girl. She wanted me. She always wanted me. And I think there were times when...
Objection to hearsay as to what she wanted, that calls for hearsay.
It could fall under child hearsay. I don't even think it's hearsay at all. She's simply making an expression of describing what she observed as far as Millie and wanting to remain with her. I don't think we're not offering for the truth of the matter, certainly.
Well, is it based upon what the child said to her?
It is.
Sustained objection.
Don't tell me what Millie said. Okay. How about what did you observe as far as her demeanor?
Millie was a very loving child toward me. She loved her Nana more than anything or anybody. We were very close. And she preferred to be with me than anybody.
Objection as to what Millie preferred that calls for hearsay.
I don't think it calls for hearsay. I think it's simply her interpretation of what she heard from her granddaughter who's 4 years old.
I don't know how it is that she's gleaned this understanding. It's through statements or it's through something else. And so I presume it's through statements. It seems to me the way that one gets this information, I suppose it's possible to get through demeanor as well. I'm going to ask that you do some clarifying. And that's where we're going.
Based upon her demeanor, okay? Folks, it's just done that. what was your interpretation as far as how, as far as Millie's desire to remain with you?
And she was very clingy. She was always telling me how much she loved me. She knew that I was her.
I'm going to go on.
Sorry.
All right. Let's talk about the Rosenbaums. Were you familiar with Jennifer Rosenbaum or Joseph Rosenbaum before your grandchildren or great-grandchildren ever got placed with them?
No.
What's the first time you ever heard the name Jennifer Rosenbaum?
The day that we were in court, when the judge awarded both of the children to this place, I was told after that.
Okay, let me make it real clear. Based upon what you were told, were you then had you then heard the name Jennifer Rosenbaum?
Yes.
Okay. What was had you, and you'd never heard that name before, correct?
No.
Okay. Did you ever? How did you come to find out that the children were even going to be placed with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
I believe it was Miss Lambert that told me that.
And Judge, at this point, we're simply laying the foundation as to how we get to the next part. Ms. Lambert has already testified, and so I don't see the harm. We're not offering for the truth of the matter asserted. We're simply trying to establish how she first came to know where her great-grandchildren were.
What's the foundation of her?
It's hearsay, it's right hearsay. I would object to it coming in.
This is the objection.
Okay, let's talk about conversations that you had with Ms. Rosenbaum. How about that? Did you ever have a conversation with Jennifer Rosenbaum?
I initiated contact with her through email. I emailed her to introduce myself and tell her all that I had learned about her and read about her and how accomplished she was for a young lady, and how happy I was that the children would be. They were initially spending weekends with her to get used to them, to the Rosenbaums, and then the plan was that they would go to live with them as fosters.
Okay. So you testified that you were happy about this.
Mm-hmm.
Why were you happy about this?
Well, it looked good on writing. She had allegedly accomplished all these wonderful things. She said that she was an attorney. She said that she had gotten a scholarship for college, had graduated from college, was now in Emory Law School, or she had gone to Emory Law School, and she loved her job as an attorney. And then she said that her husband had a bachelor's degree, and he was in law enforcement.
Now, did you email with her quite a bit?
Yes.
Is that the primary way that you communicated, or did you communicate other ways as well?
We had occasional phone call, and I would see her when we exchanged the children, or we would meet up, we would talk in person.
Now, did she indicate how she knew your granddaughter, Tessa?
Yes, she said that she and Tessa were friends, that they had been in foster care together. And Tessa denied that relationship as such. She said that they were...
Sustained.
Okay. Here's the thing. We can't talk about what other people said, all right?
Gotcha.
All right. Let me ask you about this. Tell me about the first time that you met Joseph.
I usually met Jennifer to get the children, but she had to be somewhere class or something, and so she set it up for me to meet Joseph at McDonald's and get him from him. And so I did, and I had a friend with me, so we took both girls. And when I first saw him, since I hadn't met him, and I was familiar with his wife and all about their home and everything, I just went up and hugged his neck. I'm a hugger.
Uh-huh.
He was like, very stiff and formal about it.
Okay. So again, at this point, were you still happy that your great-grandchildren were with the Rosenbaums?
I had no reason not to be at that point.
Now, did either Jennifer or Joseph ever mention anything regarding the bathing arrangements, like how the children were bathed?
Yes.
What was your understanding from what they told you?
That Jennifer only bathed one of them, I think, or that Joseph was the only one who bathed them or something. I'm mixed up on this.
She doesn't know, she needs to find out.
Ma'am, to the best of your recollection, what was your
To the
understanding?
best of my recollection, Joseph bathed Millie and Jennifer bathed Layla.
But are you 100% sure about that? Or?
No,
And it's okay to tell
to
us
the
if
best of
you're
my
not.
recollection.
Ma'am, I don't mean to pry.
I might have it backwards.
Ma'am, I don't mean to pry. How old are you?
I'll be 72 next month.
And how's your memory sometimes?
Spotty, it comes and goes. Sometimes it's very accurate, and other times it's just not there.
Okay. And so what we'll do here today is I want you to be to the best of your recollection, okay?
Okay.
And if you don't remember something, it's okay to say that too, okay? I want to talk about visitation now. Did you ever see the girls when they were living with the Rosenbaums?
Yes.
And what was the arrangement supposed to be when they were living with the Rosenbaums?
Well, I think they were given a month for the girls to acclimate to the new situation, and then my weekly visits would resume after that. But after my first visit, or at my first visit, Jennifer told me that the children needed to be put down for a nap at 1 o'clock. And when I took them back to her after the visit, she asked me, did they sleep at 1 o'clock? I said, well, Layla fell asleep, but Millie didn't fall asleep, so she just had quiet time for an hour. So she then informed me that since Millie didn't take her nap, that she was going to have to bring the girls to me after nap time instead of in the morning, which effectively cut down my visits from whole days to half days.
And so initially you were supposed to have full day visits,
Mm-hmm.
and then they kind of went down to half day visits.
Mm-hmm.
If you could say yes or no.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Now, was this something that went through DFACS, or was this just an arrangement that you had with Ms. Rosenbaum?
With Ms. Rosenbaum.
So you said that first you were seeing them the whole day, and then they went on a half day, correct?
Yes.
Did they ever get shortened any further?
Yes. It wasn't long after that I was told the visits would be every other week instead of every week.
Now, to your knowledge, was Ms. Rosenbaum a busy person?
She was, as far as I know.
Would you communicate about the visitations with her?
Yes.
Did you ever express your frustration about not being able to see your great-grandchildren as much as you'd like?
I don't think so.
Now, when you were supposed to get the girls, did you always get both girls?
No. There were times when I was told that I couldn't have Layla because of various reasons.
And what would some of those reasons be?
Oh, she was sick, or she had just fallen asleep and they didn't want to wake her up, or
To your knowledge, were the girls ever in counseling?
oh yes, there was one time that I couldn't have either of them because Jennifer had told me that they were all going on a trip to South Dakota to her friend's wedding, and they would be gone during my regular day of getting the visitation. So that was my regular day was a Tuesday. Well, when they got back, I asked, could I see them on Thursday instead? And she said, oh no, that's the day the counselor's coming over.
Did you believe they were in counseling the entire the time they were living with Rosenbaum?
That was my understanding.
Now, what were your feelings when the visits were getting cut back like this?
I wasn't happy about it. But each time, Jennifer assured me that she had discussed it with Ms. White, and Ms. White was in agreement with it, and it was
At this point, did you have any concerns whatsoever about the safety of your great-grandchildren?
not at that point, no.
To your knowledge, was this a temporary placement, or was the plan reunification?
It was reunification,
And with reunification, would that have been with your granddaughter?
yes.
Now, did you ever say anything to Ms. Rosenbaum about the children being abused by their biological mother?
No,
To your knowledge, were the children ever abused by their biological mother?
no, not to my knowledge. I know she was overwhelmed by having to care for them. That's why I tried to take one off her hands as much as possible. She was sometimes neglectful, but never abusive.
Did you ever indicate that they were burned by their biological
No.
mother? Did you ever indicate they were forced to eat feces?
No.
Regarding the counselor, did Jennifer ever mention, you talked about you thought they were in counseling, did Jennifer ever mention them being in counseling in any emails that you received?
Yes. Jennifer would say that after a visit with me, Millie was kind of hard to handle. She wouldn't mind, and she said things like, well, Nana doesn't make me do that. Nana said I don't have to do that. Well, none of that was true. And she allegedly said Nana lets me eat that kind of stuff, and that wasn't true either. But after visits with me, when Jennifer said Millie was difficult to handle, I said, well, maybe the counselor can help with that.
Okay. And did she ever say anything about not seeing a counselor?
No.
Do you recall the date of that? Do you recall the date of that email off the top of your head?
No, sir.
Would it help to refresh your recollection if I were to show you a document?
Yes.
Just let me know when your recollection's been refreshed. Do you recall the date now?
September 20th, 2015.
Was there another indication? Was there another time that Ms. Rosenbaum, another date that Ms. Rosenbaum discussed the children seeing a counselor in an email?
I don't remember.
Would it help to refresh your recollection if I were to show you a document?
Yes, sir.
And just read it to yourself and let me know when your recollection's been refreshed.
Do you want me to read it?
No, but do you see what is your recollection been refreshed as to whether or not there was a previous conversation about a counselor?
Yes.
Okay, and do you see a date? Do you recall the date of that?
August 30th, 2015.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll take that from you. Now, you mentioned a trip to South Dakota. What was your understanding of that trip to South Dakota?
That they were going for a friend of Jennifer's wedding, that they were all flying to South Dakota. And when I did see Millie again after they returned, I asked her, well, what was it like having your first airplane flight? Did you look down at the clouds? And she just looked.
She's actually not going to say what Millie said.
That's a security response.
Okay, let me ask you this. What was Millie's response?
She looked puzzled. She didn't say anything.
Did you discuss that with Jennifer?
Well, before Millie could say anything, Jennifer jumped into the conversation and said, well, we had to use Millie's ticket for Joseph's sister, so she and Joseph had to drive there. And I'm wondering, how do they drive to South Dakota in one day? I don't know.
And then did you ask Jennifer anything else about that trip to South Dakota?
Oh, yeah, I asked her, did they get to see Mount Rushmore while they were there? She replied that they did. I said, well, did you get some good pictures? And she said, well, no, it was cloudy and overcast, so we didn't get any pictures.
Were you ever able to see any pictures of this trip to South Dakota?
No, I don't believe there ever was one.
Objection to witness believes that's not part of what she's been testifying to, just for the future.
Response?
No response.
All right.
Ma'am, I want to talk a little bit about some of the injuries that you observed, okay? Did you ever observe any injuries on Layla while she was living with the Rosenbaums?
I observed facial bruising on several occasions. But
Let's take them in seconds, okay? Tell me about the first time that you observed facial bruising.
I asked Jennifer what happened, and she said she had fallen down the stairs. I think she landed her face on a toy.
Did she talk anything about needing medical intervention?
I don't recall.
At that point, did you even question the story?
No. She wasn't used to stairs, and she was a toddler and seemed quite plausible.
Okay. Now, you said it a few times. Tell me about the second time that you remember.
Well, she had the same side of her face all bruised up again, and so I asked Jennifer about that, and she said, oh, she had a black eye. The second time was a black eye. She had a black eye. And I said, what happened to her? And she said, oh, she got into a fight with a little boy at daycare, but you should see him. He got the worst of it.
Now, do you recall if Jennifer mentioned what daycare they were in?
If she did, I don't recall. I wouldn't have been familiar with any of them anyway.
Did either Millie or Layla ever talk about going to daycare?
No.
Did you personally ever observe Millie ever having tantrums?
No.
What about hitting?
No.
How about Millie? Did you ever observe Millie having tantrums?
You asked me about Millie. You mean
Okay.
Layla?
Then let me flip it in my head. How about Layla?
Not prior to living with the Rosenbaums, no.
How about after living with the Rosenbaums?
Afterwards, she would sometimes pull Millie's hair. She would, if Millie took a toy that Layla wanted to play with, she would get mad and she'd pull her hair.
Was that pretty much the extent of what you observed, though?
Yes.
Were there any other times when you observed any bruising on Layla?
Yes, there was an instance at Noah's Ark when Jennifer was giving a small birthday party for Millie. It was just family, I think. But when I went there, both the girls were in their Halloween costumes, and this was like weeks before Halloween. But Layla's was like an Olaf costume, and it covered her entire body except for like a face. And again, the whole side of her face was bruised.
I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as States 152 for identification purposes and previously shown to defense counsel. Do you recognize States 152?
Yes, I have that same picture on my cell phone.
Okay, and what are we looking at a picture of?
It's at Noah's Ark. Layla is in the costume, the little face is sticking out. Jennifer is feeding her icing off of a cupcake. And it looks like Jennifer's knuckles are all bruised up too.
And does this fairly and accurately represent what you observed on
Yes.
the day you were at Noah's Ark?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move into evidence States 152. And ma'am, I have up here on the screen for you States 152. All right, ma'am, I'm going to give you this laser pointer. And this is the little pointer. Just hit this little button right here. Just don't point it towards anyone's eye, okay?
Okay.
Now, in this photograph, do you see the bruising that you had mentioned that you observed?
Right here, it's in the shape of a hand. You can see the fingers.
And that's what you personally observed?
Yes.
When you were you, let me ask you this, were you at this particular party?
I was there. Others were holding Layla. I didn't really see the bruising until I saw the picture.
So in person you didn't notice it, but you saw it when you got the picture, is that correct?
Right.
And you also mentioned something else about the picture that you noticed?
Yeah, it looks like Jennifer's knuckles are all bruised.
They can go back up for now. Did you ever come to find out that your great-granddaughter had broken her leg?
Yes, when Jennifer sent me another photograph, and this time it was Layla on the exam table at the doctor's office.
And is that how you first found out about it?
As far as I can remember, yes.
Did Jennifer indicate how Layla had injured herself?
She said it happened at gymnastics.
Did she ever mention her also falling at your house?
Not to me.
Are you who Layla knows as Nana?
Yes.
Are you also who Millie knows as Nana?
Yes.
No one else in the family?
No.
And so Ms. Rosenbaum never mentioned to you that the girls fell at your house, correct?
No objection to medium service?
When, if ever, did Ms. Rosenbaum tell you that the girls, that Layla fell at your house?
I don't recall any instance.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. Prior to finding out about the broken leg, did you? When was the last time Layla was even over at your house?
It had been several weeks.
So not 5 days.
No, I don't think so. I don't know. It's hard to remember those kinds of details.
Well, let me ask you this: to your recollection, it had been several weeks, correct?
It had been a while. She hadn't been over there a lot.
And when she was over there, did she ever play outside?
No, they never. Well, no, not at my house. Sometimes I would take them to the park, or the splash pad, or the swimming pool, but
Not at your
not
house.
at my house. No, they were always indoors.
So they never played outside of your house, correct?
No, there's nowhere to play.
Tell me about your backyard.
My backyard is all pavers, and the door to the backyard is blocked. You can't open it, because my sister was living with me, and her bed was against the door.
Are there any holes in your backyard?
No.
How about do you have a front yard?
Yeah, postage stamp.
Okay. Did the girls ever play outside in your front yard?
No. And there's no holes there either.
To your knowledge, did Layla ever fall in a hole at any yard near your house?
Not to my knowledge.
When the children were at your house, did you ever let them out of your sight?
No.
Now, when you heard that Layla had broken her leg, what was your reaction?
I just had a mental picture of her doing some kind of gymnastics and maybe falling on it or something. I don't know.
But is that what Ms. Rosenbaum had told you had happened?
She just said it happened at gymnastics.
At that point, did you think anything more than it was an accident?
No.
Talking a little bit more about gymnastics, to your knowledge, which girls were actually enrolled in gymnastics?
Both of them.
Now, who told you that both of them were enrolled?
Jennifer did.
Other than Jennifer telling you that, was there any other verification you had that Layla was actually enrolled in gymnastics?
No, I was sent pictures of Millie in her gymnastics outfit, and I was advised when they were going to be putting on a show in the McDonough Square and told I could come and watch her, but that was it.
Did you ever get any photographs of Layla doing gymnastics?
No.
Did either Ms. Rosenbaum or Mr. Rosenbaum ever mention anything about Layla hurting her arm?
No.
Did either of them ever mention anything about Millie hurting her arm?
No.
Do you recall the last time that you saw your great-granddaughter alive?
It was that day at Noah's Ark, October 17th, 1 month to the day before she would die.
And what was the purpose of this gathering at Noah's Ark?
Millie's birthday, which was 2 weeks prior to that.
Did you see, and so at that you saw both Millie and Layla, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about Layla. Did you see her mobile during that party?
I saw her being passed from person to person. I saw her being put in a wagon and taken for a ride.
I'm showing you what's been previously marked as states 155 and 156 for identification purposes. Do you recognize some of the people in that photograph?
Just the children.
And who do you recognize them to be?
Layla's in the front, Millie's in the back, and I don't know who that is in the middle.
Your Honor, at this time I move to admit states 155 and 156 into evidence.
Committee?
Ms. Banks, is this kind of what one of the observations you had at the Noah's Ark that day? Did you see? Is this the wagon that Layla had been in during that day?
Yes, but I can't even remember who was pulling him.
You said you also noticed her passed around. At any point did you ever notice her walking that day?
Not to my recollection.
And again, the date on this is
October 17th.
October 17th.
In that previous picture, no, never mind, that's something else.
Okay.
Sorry.
Now, they can come up right now. Thanks. Did you spend any time with Millie on that particular day?
Well, it was unusual. She wasn't all over me like she usually is, and she wouldn't even sit on my lap. And I said, "What's the matter, Millie?" And she said, "Jennifer told me not to." And I said, "Why?" I don't know.
I think this is child hearsay. This falls under child hearsay, Judge. You can continue, ma'am.
She just said Jennifer told her not to. That's all the information she gave me.
Okay. Did you ever follow up with Jennifer about that?
I did. I mentioned to her that, Millie's seemed to be acting strange toward me, and was there a problem? And she said, "Oh, well, we had a lot of family members that came from far away to see the girls, and I didn't want her spending all her time with you and your sister."
Was that kind of the end of that discussion?
Yes.
Still at this point, did you think that the girls were in any harm's way?
No, naively.
Do you recall the last time that Layla was at your house?
Not as far as the date, no.
That's okay. Do you remember her being there?
I remember her being there a few times.
Do you remember the last time anything about when she left? Anything that stood out to you?
Oh, yeah. After Jennifer had strapped her into the child seat, I ducked into the door, leaned in to tell her goodbye and I love you, and she just reached for me like this, just with this desperate look in her eyes. And I thought, Layla doesn't love me like Millie does. She doesn't know me that well. It's finally getting close to her now. I was so happy to see that.
Did Miss Rosenbaum say anything?
She said, oh, she does that with everybody.
And this was before the Noah's Ark, correct?
Yes.
Several weeks before?
I can't recall.
I want to talk to you a little bit about how you found out. How did you find out that your great-granddaughter had passed away?
It was very late on the night of. My daughter called me. I was in bed, groggily answered the phone. She was trying to tell me my baby was dead. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I thought maybe she was on drugs. I just hung up the phone. And then the next morning, I get a call from Layla's mother, and she's telling me the same thing. And she said,
Objection to what she said.
I'm not going to say. So she wanted us to meet up with them at the police department in Stockbridge.
And did you do that?
We did. My sister and I did.
Did you go anywhere after the police department?
Oh, we went to the DFAC's office.
And did you see anyone when you got to the DFAC's office?
We were in the waiting room waiting to be seen when Jennifer and Joseph came out. And my sister hurried over to console Joseph, and I went over to hug Jennifer's neck, and I told her, I said, I'm so sorry, I just can't imagine what you've been through. I was devastated for her, because at that point, all we'd been told was it was a chicken bone that she choked on and died from.
At some point, did that understanding change?
Yes.
I want to go through with you a few more pictures, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I want to show you what's been previously marked as states 153 and 154. Do you recognize states 153 and 154?
Yes.
And what do you recognize them to be?
Joseph holding Layla like he was consoling her.
And is this something that you received?
Yes.
And who did you receive this from?
From Jennifer.
And how did you receive it?
Email.
Your Honor, this time I move into evidence states 153 and 154.
No objection.
Admitted.
I want to show you what's been this photo. Is this the photo that we were talking about that you received?
Yes.
And what is the stamp or the date that's been stipulated to by the defense and the state? Do you see that at the top?
September 15th.
What year?
I guess it'll be 2015.
Okay. Now I can actually show you states 154. Do you see that blue highlighted section?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the date?
$2015.
That's okay. The
Still-
one you see up here, though, is
Yeah,
September 15th.
right.
All right. Do you recall the date that you actually received this particular photograph?
No, I don't.
Would it help to refresh your recollection if I were to show you a document?
Yes.
Let me show you this document.
October 13th.
Almost a month later. And was that via email?
Yes.
Was it your understanding that the photograph had been taken that night from that email?
Yes.
I also want to show you another set of photographs. I'm showing you states 157. 157 through 169. Can we take a chance to flip through those photographs? Do you recognize the people in those photographs?
All the people.
Do you recognize some of the people in this photograph?
I really wasn't trying to recognize them all. I saw myself, the girls, my sister, Joseph.
All right. And those are people you recognize, right?
Yes.
All right. I'll take them all from you. Your Honor,
I've never seen that one before.
do you recognize who that is?
That's Layla.
Okay. Your Honor, I move into evidence states 157 through 169. Defensive objection, Judge.
All right, we're good.
What are we looking at here? Who is this person?
That's Layla with her leg in a cast.
What are we looking at in this particular photograph?
That's a picnic table at Noah's Ark with Millie's party.
What are we looking at states 158?
Same.
States 160?
Yes, and Joseph's holding Layla in this picture.
And where's Layla?
She's in Joseph's arms.
About states 162.
That's my sister holding her, I think.
About states 164.
Layla's sitting on my lap.
And states 167.
Layla on my lap.
The lights can come up. Lights can come up if you like. Now I want to focus now on the period of time after Layla's death. Where did Millie go after
Mr. Chair, so you have a significant amount of work still to do.
I still probably have another 20 minutes.
Okay, let's go ahead and take our mid-afternoon break, 15 minutes, and we'll come back.
Was there ever any concern about lying?
I had problems with Millie brushing her teeth. When she would get ready for bed, she would tell me she had brushed them. And then we'd go to bed, and later I would go in the bathroom and discover that her toothbrush wasn't even wet. She hated brushing her teeth for some reason. I had to buy different kinds of toothpaste every time I went to the store, trying to find one she liked, and she didn't like any of them. I think she just didn't want to do it. So she told me she had when she hadn't.
So if you expressed concerns about her lying, was it about things like that?
Yes.
Nothing further this time.
Okay, cross. All right.
Good afternoon, Ms. Banks. My name is Karina Mull.
Yes, ma'am.
If I don't speak loud enough, if you could let me know, and if you don't understand my question, if you could ask me to rephrase, please. The family as a whole had a lot of alcohol and drug issues, isn't that correct?
There were 3 people in my family that I knew of that had problems with drugs.
Mother, grandmother of Layla,
Yes,
mother of Layla,
yes.
father of Layla.
I didn't think of him as a family member.
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes we don't like to, but we have to. Father,
Yes,
father of Millie Place.
yes.
So it's fair to say, Ms. Banks, that it was important to Tessa that her children not be in a home with drug or alcohol abuse, correct?
Yes,
And in fact, she was very firm about not wanting her children to be around drugs, correct?
I guess. I never heard her vocalize it.
You never heard her complain at all about being at the Rosenbaums, did you?
I know she didn't trust Jennifer.
I'm asking you not what you think. I'm asking you, did you ever hear her complain about the Rosenbaums when her daughters were with them?
Yes,
Do you recall that you told Miss Hicks King, who was doing the investigation into the death of Layla, do you recall telling her that Tessa never complained to Miss Banks about Miss Rosenbaum? Do you remember that?
no, I don't.
Now, you say that there were problems with behaviors with the children, but isn't it true you told Miss Roberson and Mr. Blunt from DFACS that Millie had behavior problems?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall that you told DFACS that Gina was helpful to you in terms of managing behavior issues? Do you recall telling them that?
No,
Do you remember talking to the other 2 foster mothers about their problems with the children's behavior?
I would always ask them about them, and I guess I can't tell you what they said.
With regards to your conversation with Detective Thompson, he came on the scene right at the very beginning of the case.
Yes,
And initially, you told Detective Thompson that Jennifer was a good mother and that the children showed no sign of abuse. Do you remember that?
no.
You don't remember
I
saying
don't
that?
remember the specifics of conversations.
Do you remember saying you had no indication of abuse with Jennifer?
I had no concerns.
Now, after time passed, you contacted him about 30 days later, and you had a whole pile of negative things to say about Jennifer, didn't you?
I remember contacting him after the fact.
And you remember telling him 30 days later that you wanted to tell him about all the things Jennifer had done wrong. Do you recall that?
Not specifically. Do you have a copy of something I can refresh my memory with?
See if this refreshes your recollection.
Yeah, I remember that. Those highlighted areas?
All the areas.
Oh,
I just want you to tell me when your recollection's been refreshed. You don't have to read the whole thing, just when your recollection's been refreshed. Does that refresh your recollection?
yes.
Isn't it true that after you had given your first statement saying you had no concerns with Jennifer, that you then contacted him and told him about all the negative things you were now coming up with against her?
I'm sure I told him I had no concerns with her initially.
No, but didn't you, when you first talked to him, when he first came to you, you and your sister both said that there was no concerns of abuse. Isn't that correct?
We never saw her talk to him until after Layla was dead.
Well, of course. But right after she died, when he first initiated the investigation, you told him you had no concerns about abuse.
We were very naive.
Did you tell him
I
that
don't
you
know
had no
specifically.
concerns about abuse?
I can't tell you
Then
what
just
my
say, I don't
exact
know.
words were.
Did you communicate that to him in any words?
I don't know.
And please, Ms. Banks, feel free to say, I don't know, if you don't know or you don't remember. Now, during those 30 days that went by between the time you made your first statement to Detective Thompson and the time you started making numerous other statements to him, during that month of time, Tessa had hired a lawyer to sue DFACS. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And isn't that correct? Isn't it correct that she told you she was going to own DFACS? You set out to help her, didn't you?
In what way?
To help her in her quest to sue and own DFACS.
I didn't have anything to do with that.
Okay. Now, you told Detective Thompson a number of things. You said that you thought Jennifer Rosenbaum was getting paid to take care of your children. Did you ever get that straightened out?
No.
Okay. Are you aware that she was not getting paid?
No.
Now, you said that she never asked you for anything for the girls. Isn't that correct?
No. I mean, yes, it's not. It's correct.
It's correct.
But she did not.
She didn't ask you to buy anything for them?
No.
Now, one of the reasons you were given on a certain date why Millie could not visit you was that Millie had to go to counseling. Isn't that correct?
That was one.
That was one
day.
time. In fact, there were several. There were 2 or 3 times with counseling, correct? And isn't it true, Ms. Banks, that Miss Warner had asked that they be evaluated? Did you know that?
I don't know.
Did you know that Millie and Layla were taken for a forensic interview? Do you recall that? They saw a counselor for a forensic interview. That's possible, isn't it?
Yes.
And if those fell on your days, then you couldn't visit with them, could you, if they were going to the counselor? Isn't that right?
I recall one instance where I couldn't visit them because their counselor was coming over that day instead of her regular day. That's all I remember.
Do you have a problem with the children receiving counseling?
Oh, no.
So you didn't mind forfeiting your visit so that the counselor could make her visit, did you?
Just that one time.
Just that one time. In fact, she was evaluated just one time and then a forensic interview, correct?
I don't know.
Now, there came a point in time, isn't it correct, Ms. Banks, that Millie came back from visits with you and told the Rosenbaums she didn't have to mind, that she didn't have to do what they asked her to do because Nana had said so, correct?
That's what Jennifer claimed.
And that's what Miss Lambert claimed, isn't it?
Well, they just said that.
Just a yes or no, then you can explain.
Okay, I don't know.
You say you don't know whether Miss Lambert said that as well?
No.
And you don't know whether Miss Brown complained about that as well?
They all said something, but it wasn't that.
Now, these folks were giving your grandchildren a home, correct?
Yes.
And you would talk to Millie and sow discord about the home. Isn't that correct?
I don't have any specific recollections.
As a result of you, put it this way, strike that. Miss Brown, Samantha White, there are too many colors here, Samantha White, told you that if you did not stop telling Millie that she didn't have to mind, she's going to testify, I can just make Ms. Banks come back. She's,
All right, just take it.
you knew what would cut off your visitation, but you did it anyway, didn't you?
What?
Tell Millie repeatedly that she didn't have to do what anybody else asked her to do, that you were the nana and that was who
I
she-
never told her anything like that. I never would. I
And if
taught
she
her
ca-
to obey, not to disobey.
And if she had told that to various caseworkers, she's lying and you're not.
I just never told her that. That's all I know.
Millie has a problem with telling stories,
No more than any other child her age.
but she has a problem with lying, doesn't she?
Saying she brushed her teeth when she didn't.
Does she have a problem with lying?
I don't know. I haven't been with her for over a year.
Did you, when you had her, did you take her to Dr. Potts and say you were desperate because she was lying?
Why would I say that to Dr.
I'm not
Potts?
asking you why, I'm asking you, did you say that to me?
I don't recall that. That was her physician.
That's correct. Isn't it true, Ms. Banks, that Jennifer's the one that advocated for you to get some visitation? Visitation would have been cut off otherwise.
She said that, but I had no proof of it.
And isn't it true, Ms. Banks, that really Jennifer didn't have to let the great-grandma of her foster children visit? Isn't that correct?
Why would it be up to her?
I'm asking you, do you know that she did not have to allow the visits?
I don't know what she would have to do with allowing visits. That would be defects.
I'm asking you, did you know that? That she didn't have to allow a great-grandmother, she didn't have to take time out of her schedule to have mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, grandmothers, great-grandmothers visit, correct?
I don't know.
Now, there was one time you complained to Detective Thompson and said that Jennifer did not leave the car seats for you to take Millie and Layla on visitation. Didn't you complain to Detective Thompson about
I
that?
wouldn't call it complaining.
You rejoiced about it.
I wouldn't have that either.
Okay, what is it then?
I brought it to his attention.
Okay, so you brought it to his attention. Are we on the same page now?
Right.
And when you brought it to his attention, you told him that you were upset because Jennifer had left without leaving the car seats in the car.
Well, I wasn't happy about it.
Isn't
But
it
anything
true?
can happen.
Isn't it true, Ms. Banks, you're responsible for your own car seats? You had a car seat for Millie,
I had
didn't
a
you?
car seat.
You
But I
didn't
didn't
have-
have two car seats.
You didn't have a car seat for your other granddaughter, Millie,
No.
but Layla. You only had one for
I
Millie,
had one
didn't you?
car seat.
And so you depended on them to provide you with another car seat for Layla, correct?
Well, she would bring her over in one, and she would pick her up and take her home in one, but I never used it.
So why did you bring it to Detective Thompson's attention that she had gone to school and taken the car with the car seats in it?
Because without the car seats, Joseph couldn't bring the girls to me.
Okay, and so we're back to the fact that you depended on them to bring you Layla's car seat, correct?
No, bring me Layla.
Okay, and
But you have to have a car seat to do that, and she went off to school with
but
it.
you needed the car seat as well.
I didn't use it. I never took it out of their vehicle and used it and gave it back.
You never used it.
It stayed in their vehicle. If I needed a second car seat, I borrowed one from a friend.
So that time you couldn't have borrowed one from a friend? You went to their house.
He couldn't bring them to me without the car seat. But she told me that they had one somewhere in their garage and he was looking for it. So I figured by the time I drove all the way out there, he would have found it.
In fact, he did go to a friend and get a car
Right.
seat for you, for
Right.
your granddaughter.
Right.
But the one day that she absentmindedly left the seats in the car, you told Detective Thompson she was trying to deprive you of your visitation. Isn't that correct?
I don't recall that.
Now, another excuse you told Detective Thompson about was because you couldn't visit with Layla because she was in a cast and had to be carried everywhere. And Jennifer was concerned about your back.
No, Jennifer told me that I couldn't have a visit with Layla because she was in the cast and I would have had to carry her, and she knew I wasn't able to do that.
So you couldn't see Layla because you weren't able to see Layla, correct?
Right.
That Now, you were invited to the event on the square where Millie was doing her gymnastics routine. You didn't go, did you?
No, I was not able to go that evening.
In fact, you have told all the caseworkers that you could not take Millie and Layla at the same time, correct?
It was difficult for me to handle 2 children with all my disabilities.
Did you tell that to the caseworkers?
I probably did.
Isn't it true that when asked by Cynthia Tate and Tiffany Chapman to babysit Layla, you refused?
If I was unable to take care of her, yes. She was an active toddler and needed a lot of attention, and Millie was more self-sufficient.
They both were fairly active girls, weren't they?
Yes.
They were rough and tumble, weren't they?
Yes.
Isn't it true you never called Cynthia Tate or the Chapmans except when you wanted a babysitter for Millie? Isn't that correct? You never inquired about Layla?
I don't recall.
And isn't it true that while these folks were taking care of your great-grandchildren, you were telling caseworkers that Cynthia was an alcoholic and she was having men in the house? Do you recall that?
I don't recall anything about alcoholism. I didn't know the lady well enough to know her drinking habits.
So it's your testimony that you never said that to the caseworker?
I said I don't recall.
Okay, so you don't remember if you did or
No.
not? You like to sow chaos.
No. No.
And isn't it true that Tessa, the mother of Layla and Millie, would not let you visit with her other child? Isn't that true? Because you sow chaos.
What?
Karma.
Carmely?
Isn't it true that Tessa did not let you see Karma because
No.
you were always
No.
sowing
No,
chaos?
that's totally untrue. She didn't even have Karma. Karma was with foster parents, and Millie, or Tessa, called me up and told me to come over at the date and time that Karma would be there so I could see my new great-grandbaby.
Isn't it true that you told Bridget Frazier, the caseworker, that you were very concerned about Karma and that she has not been allowed to see Karma because the biological mother, Tessa, would not allow her? Didn't you say that to Miss Bridget Frazier on 10/25/15?
Would you repeat that?
Did you not tell her that you were very concerned about Karma and that you had not been allowed to see Karma because Tessa would not allow it? Do you recall saying that?
No, I certainly don't, because I did see Karma, and Tessa didn't have her.
So the caseworker would be mistaken.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Now, the South Dakota trip, you don't know if it happened or it didn't, do you?
I highly doubt it.
I'm not asking you whether you had
No.
it. It's fair to say that you wanted to be included in everything, isn't that correct?
Well, they're my family, and I needed to continue being a part of them.
And there were times when the Rosenbaums needed family time, isn't that correct?
What do you mean?
Needed time on their own,
Away
without
from each other?
great-grandmother. No,
Oh.
without great-grandmother hanging around.
I didn't hang around.
Show you what I labeled as 115, defendant's 115, and see if you recognize that.
Yes. This was at the Noah's Ark birthday party, which Jennifer told me about and wanted me to come to.
Your Honor, may I tender into evidence defendant's exhibit 115 and publish?
Any objection? No objection. Admitted. 115.
Where was this picture taken?
The table area at Noah's Ark,
And what date was that?
October 17th.
If you would, show me where the bruising was on this child.
On the cheek that's away from the camera.
But you can see the cheek away from the camera. Do you see any bruising on it?
Can't tell in that photo, it's not large enough.
In fact, you were sitting there very happy in that picture, were you not?
I was glad to see the girls and see them having a good time.
Not like somebody would just see a big bruise on their granddaughter's cheek.
No, I
correct?
didn't even notice the bruise at first.
So you didn't notice the bruise until you went home and looked at pictures,
Right.
correct? 30 days after this case ended up in the papers, and 30 days after your daughter instituted a lawsuit. Isn't that true?
I'm not sure of the date.
I'll show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 116 and see if you can identify that.
I don't recognize it.
You don't recognize it.
Where was that taken?
Doesn't matter at this point. If you don't recognize it, you won't use it. Remember Millie and Layla being pulled in a wagon at Noah's Ark?
Yes.
Do you recall now that picture that I just showed you? Is
No.
that,
Was that at Noah's Ark?
see if you can look at that and see if they're being pulled by in a,
Oh, yes, they are.
is that at Noah's Ark?
It must have been. I've not been there enough to recognize these buildings.
That is your granddaughter, your great-granddaughter,
Yes.
Layla, in that picture,
Uh-huh, I knew it.
and Millie. Now, this time I would tender Defendant's Exhibit 116 to the record and ask for publish.
Any objection?
You see any bruises on her left-hand side that's facing the camera?
I can't tell in that photo.
You can't tell.
No,
But you don't see any as you're sitting there, do you?
no, it's
For the record,
too small and too far away.
Defense Exhibit 116 has been stipulated to have been taken on October 17th, 2015. Now, you claim you've seen all these bruises. You said you saw the bruises once on Layla's face, and then the next month you saw more bruises, and you saw a black eye on Layla, correct?
Yes.
So did you call the police?
No, each time I was assured by Jennifer that Miss White was aware of it and that it was an accident and nobody was concerned.
Did you call Miss White to verify that?
No, I did not.
Did you call DFAX at all?
No, I totally trusted Jennifer.
You take any pictures of her with this black eye you're talking about?
No,
So there are no pictures of her with a black eye that you know of, are there?
I'm not aware of any. I didn't take any. I don't know if anyone else did.
Talking now about your house. Isn't it true, Miss Banks, that you took the children outside your home? Isn't that correct? They went to the park
Yes,
and they went to the splash pad?
yes,
You took them other places too, didn't you?
yes.
Now, at Noah's Ark, isn't it true that Layla and Millie got out of their costumes and were put in play clothes? Isn't that correct?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember. Now, neither child complained to you about never getting enough to eat, did they?
No, not to me.
In fact, the Lamberts warned you that Lila would stuff food down her mouth and try to swallow. And you had to be careful, didn't she?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. And when Layla died and you saw Jennifer for the first time, she was crying, wasn't she? You went to console her.
She was visibly upset, understandably.
And you went to console her.
Yes, I did. I was still naive and I felt bad for her.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. At this time, that's all I have.
Thank you. And redirect.
Very briefly, Judge. Ms. Mull asked you several questions about having no concerns about the children being in the Rosenbaum's custody. That lasted all the way past Layla's death, correct?
Oh, yes. I mean, sometimes you have 20/20 hindsight, or you remember things in retrospect, or once you get over the trauma, some of your memory comes back.
In fact, before you talked about when you first saw Ms. Rosenbaum, you actually ran up to her and hugged her, correct?
Yes.
And you said that you have 20/20 hindsight. When Ms. Mull asked you about the concerns that you brought to Detective Thompson's attention, is that kind of what you were? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yes, he had me in his office soon after. I can't remember if it was the first day or the second day, and grilled me, and I was having trouble remembering because of the trauma, and later I recalled things and let him know. He told me, as I thought of more things to let him know, so I did.
Nothing further.
Okay.
I'm going to show you what I marked as defendant's exhibit 120. See if you can identify that. I'm sorry.
That's on my front porch. It's my daughter and her, at that time, boyfriend.
And who else is
Millie.
there? Where's your daughter now?
She is in custody at a facility in Swainsboro.
Your Honor, I would tender into the record defendant's exhibit 120 and ask to publish.
Judge, I would check out some relevance and expertise.
What is the relevance?
The relevance is, so I show the judge, give me that approach.
Okay.